This episode is brought to you by RLD Group, on a mission to reboot leadership drive, eradicate burnout in tech, and help transform technical experts lacking people leadership skills from being a company's biggest liability into their greatest asset. On this episode of Control-Alt-Delete with Lisa Dury.
When you think about the great, what do they call it these days? The great
resignation.
Resignation, right? There's nothing great about it. Like, it's the most awful thing on the planet when you think about people being so done and feeling that it's easier to quit than to go ask for part-time or hybrid or help or no to a project. The concept that is not lost on me is I know what it takes to find a job. That's months of stress and pressure and uncertainty. And they probably are doing that while they should be getting work done in the day job. And then they leave and you're like, wait, why are they leaving?
Leaders in tech are burning out at an absurd rate. Control-Alt-Delete with Lisa Dury is a no BS conversation with a female executive who spent over 25 years in Silicon Valley. If you're suffering from the always on, never good enough, we'll replace you today machine called the tech space, this show will help you reboot your leadership drive. Here's Lisa.
Here's your question for today. What conversation are you not having? I want to say it differently. What is it you know you need to bring up, but you don't know how to bring it up? Whether it's with your partner, whether it's with your child, your boss, your neighbor. I have a feeling there's something going on in your life right now that needs to be brought up, and you know it, but you don't know what to do about it, and you're kind of stuck. So it's like, why not just ignore it? Well, at least that's true for me. I don't know about anybody listening. I'm just going to speak for myself for a second. I want you to reflect on this question as I share my story. My mother-in-law is moving from Washington to Oregon to be nearby. And let me tell you what kind of tough, brave conversation needs to be had in my house, which is how often will she visit? How will we structure our new life? What are the things that really matter right now, knowing she's closer because she's a widow and we want her to have a community of friends. And we know our lives are really busy. And yet my husband and I have been so focused on moving her. We have not had the conversation yet about what's life going to be like now that she's closer. And I think we're dancing around it. Like, that's the truth, right? In a very busy world. And so when I think about that, and I think about our guest today, I'm so excited for us to lean into whatever conversation you are aware that needs to happen, but avoiding for whatever reason. And because it doesn't feel safe, you don't know what to do. What if it goes poorly or terribly wrong? There's a high stakes involvement here. So I just want to tell you, there's nobody better equipped to help us with this today than Elisabeth Cardiello. And Elisabeth, I'm so glad you're here on Control-Alt-Delete.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Okay. I just need to fully let people know. Elisabeth has a framework. It's a Brave Conversations Over Coffee framework. I will tell everyone, I didn't have my coffee until Elisabeth and I got on to prep for today. So I have my coffee now, because don't we all know when you lean in and you have that social connection, it's already safer than when you're, sitting across the table from each other, just ready to go. So I want to tell you something about Elisabeth. I'm going to read you just a brief snippet about her amazingness, but she's a communication expert whose Brave Conversations Over Coffee series is giving organizations, entrepreneurs, and families a framework to have the difficult conversations that are key to building trust, inclusion, and overall well-being. And in a world of hybrid and Zoom, I got to believe nobody can say, oh, there's not a conversation I need to have. So we are in great hands today. And I want to tell you about her mission. Her mission is to build a world where coffee is the catalyst that inspires deeper listening, safer spaces, and greater access to our own creativity, productivity, connection, and fulfillment. So we all know Control-Alt-Delete's all about rebooting leadership drive. We know that it's about preventing burnout or rebooting from burnout. And I know from my own experience and in working with Elisabeth that one of the fastest, most effective ways to prevent or recover from burnout is to speak your truth and to own your truth. And so, Elisabeth, tell us everything. What do we need to know? What is it to be brave?
Oh my gosh, tell us everything.
Tell us everything.
How long
I'm
do you
so
have?
excited, right? No pressure.
So what do you think about it? Like you said, it's a really hard time to tell the truth, right? We're judged about everything, vaccinated, not vaccinated, red, blue, black, white, who agrees with what? You're being judged for everything. And we're being invalidated for any inkling of thought that's not the same as someone else. And why? Because the way that we've essentially learned how to be in the world is we define ourselves by othering. We define ourselves by saying, I'm good, and I have to meet my goodness is only predicated on you being bad, right? And like, we don't know how to say, we're all really beautiful and really good. And you've had really different experiences from me. So there must be something really probably fascinating behind what you believe when it's different from me. And the very first way that I ever described brave conversations was I genuinely believe that we need change, right? Like we need a way to be able to talk to other people and share what's true for us. And we're so bifurcated. Like we're living in a world that is at once super connected and at the same time super disconnected for many reasons. And we can march and we can fight and we can sign policy into law and we can hope that our leaders change things because they're so great or not or whatever. But change will never be sustainable unless we can, each of us, sit at the table, across the table from someone who believes something different from us. And we can genuinely still want them to be well, right? Like if we can't figure that out for ourselves, don't stand a chance. And so what brave conversations do, in short, is they help create a structure for having the hard conversations that we so often avoid because we get tangled up in how am I going to say it? How are they going to respond? What's going to happen if I say this so that they'll do this, right? Like the first thing I'll always tell people is if you're about to say something so that someone responds a certain way, back up.
Yeah. If you're about to say something so that you get the response a certain way, pause.
Yeah.
That's like a red flag for yourself. Yep.
Hit the pause button. And it's hard. Like I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It is not easy because we do that. We don't intend. I mean, most of the things that we mess up about conversation, we don't intend to be jerks, but we're really often jerks.
Yeah.
Really big ones.
Triggered. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And so I think it's really important for us to start to understand, especially in the world we live in right now. I mean, we couldn't be doing this at a more perfect time. The world needs this and is so open to it right now that, I mean, 3 years ago, I was trying to educate people on why it's important to listen and why we don't listen well and why that matters. And people kind of didn't want to hear it. Yeah. And now we're like, oh my gosh, we don't listen very well. We need to understand how to actually do that better. And some of it's about empathy and some of it's, I mean, so why over coffee? One, because I owned a coffee company for 10 years and got to see that exactly no one ever says, let's go have this hard conversation in the boardroom, right? Like no one ever said that. They always say, let's go grab coffee so we can be authentic, like so we can be real about this. And in deconstructing those conversations, my background's been in leadership and communication. You get to see that we need to do something different. So the thing we're going for in conversation, the thing that actually brings about empathy, brings about having difficult conversations in a productive way is making our brain feel safe. Psychological safety is like the key to all of that. And the coffee is the first tangible symbol of safety, right? Because we know it, we love it, we trust it, it's familiar, we do it every day. So going to get coffee or the bringing coffee or the having coffee around the table, like that's the first signal of this is safe, this is okay. And then the Brave framework actually teaches us how we can take over as that safe symbol in the conversation.
Oh, I'm going to join you for a second because I had an awareness that I think intuitively, I'm just going to share this because I think what will happen is it will light a spark for others. So I can't tell you how many times when we were in the office that I would say to people on my team, let's go grab a coffee. And I wanted to leave the campus. And so we would go to a Starbucks or a Pete's or a local coffee shop or whatever. And I always knew that we would have a better one-on-one. I knew that drive over in the car together. I knew that sitting there, even what are they ordering and connecting with each other. And I got known for it to the point where people were like, oh yeah, Lisa doesn't have one-on-ones in her office. Like she has them at coffee shops. And what you're saying, I didn't know that at the time. I just had a knowing inside of me that we would have richer conversations and be more productive. And I also felt that, leaving the four walls of whatever office or cube you're sitting in did something for your brain. Like this is before I knew a lot more than I know now. But I just want to highlight even if it was a difficult conversation, but having coffee actually helped me individually as a leader, put my hands on the cup, take a step, like, that pause you're talking about. It was like a secret pause for me. I'm just realizing right now, the smell, the holding it, the even waiting for it, because you're not going to have the conversation until the coffee gets to the table, because you're going to have to pick up the coffee. So I'm just having holy shit, you're onto something, my friend.
Yeah. I mean, what's interesting is that a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, that's why I've always gone for coffee.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the latest neuroscience research basically says the key to getting on the positive path, or the path of healing, or the path of fixing things in yourself, or addressing things that you haven't been able to ever, the key to it is one thing, is safety. Mm-hmm. And the cool part is that we can actually make each other feel safe. The research that's most commonly out there is when you're in the stress response, when you're really stressed, meditate, take deep breaths, write down things you're grateful for. And those things work beautifully. They do. And when you're in a bad place, stopping and doing that by yourself is sometimes so challenging that you don't actually ever get to it, right? It's so hard to self-regulate. Whereas if you're in a bad place and you can turn to someone that you trust, who knows how to have a brave conversation, and you can say, I'm not okay. Can I vent? Can we have a brave conversation? Can we, whatever it is that you can turn to someone. The science essentially is that person doesn't need to do anything. So it's called social baseline theory. If you're by yourself and you're looking at, a challenge or this mountain that you have to climb, you're like, oh my gosh, I can't, there's no way I can't. In the second scenario of the research, it says you're looking at this mountain and there's someone with you. Maybe you can trust them, but even just having some stranger with you, your perception of that very same mountain, that very same challenge is yeah, that's really hard. I mean, but maybe I guess I could try. Mm-hmm. And in the third scenario, if you have someone with you that you can trust, that and you feel that you can trust, that challenge doesn't look as hard. Your brain perceives the exact same thing. Nothing has changed, but being witnessed while you scale that mountain, navigate that challenge, being witnessed by someone you trust makes your brain feel safer to do it. And that's why community, we're better together. We're just when we're in uncertainty, we turn toward other humans. And it's why, I mean, if in your companies, you're seeing tons more meetings, needless meetings, people are just putting stuff on the calendar and you don't actually really need to meet about it, but for some reason you are. If we're not conscious of the fact that we're not okay, we just want other humans around us. And so it could look like lots of meetings, we have no time for ourselves. But if it's addressed, you'll need less because it'll be intentional connection time. It won't be, what's next on the agenda, right? So It shows up in so many ways. I mean, another thing it's hard to tell the truth about is, hey, I'm not okay. Hey, I'm overwhelmed. Hey, I need more support at work. Hey, I can't do that last thing that came across my desk because I'm already swamped and I have no time. Because what is the story you want to tell? You want people to see you as productive, good. You want to be promoted. You want to be rewarded. You want to be celebrated. But we don't believe. I mean, people are thinking that it's easier to leave their job than to raise their hand and say, I'm not okay. I mean, we see it all the time in our clients. It's fascinating and crazy. Yeah. I mean, it's funny. A leader that I was talking to was saying, yeah, we've had a lot of people leave or a lot of women leave, but it seems like they're all for different reasons. And I said, okay, interesting. If this many people have left and you didn't have an inkling that any of them were going to leave within the 3 to 6 months before, this is proof that we're doing something wrong. And B, it looks like it's not connected, but if you didn't know that this was about to happen, I mean, people don't just up and leave. They've been thinking about this for a while. This is that it's connected somehow. And it's most often that they don't feel safe enough to say what needs to be said, even if it's hard. They don't feel safe enough to share what's true, which is what we're going to change.
If you're listening right now, here's what you need to know, okay? We're not just making this up. Elisabeth has 2 TEDx talks. She has a Netflix documentary. She's been on Forbes, NBC, SHRM, Goop, Virgin's 100% Human at Work. She also works with Simon Sinek's leadership team. Please listen in, because what she's telling you isn't just, we're 2 friends having coffee. We are 2 women on a mission to change the dynamic and the conversation, which is when you think about the great, what do they call it these days? The great
resignation.
Resignation, right? There's nothing great about it. Like, it's the most awful thing on the planet when you think about people being so done and feeling that it's easier to quit than to go ask for part-time or hybrid or help or no to a project. The concept that is not lost on me is I know what it takes to find a job. That's months of stress and pressure and uncertainty. And they probably are doing that while they should be getting work done in the day job. And then they leave and you're like, wait, why are they leaving? Like, no.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I just want to scream at the rooftops. Like, as a leader, how many times do you know what's right to do with your budget, and are you not empowered to do something with your budget? Imagine what that's like for the individual contributor who is like, I really can't say no because you're the boss. So what I heard you say, Elisabeth, I really want to circle back on is there's a magic in curiosity. You know how you were saying like otherness? Like being curious about how we are the same, being curious about what we're up against together, being curious as a leader to just understand you might be feeling that way too. So I'm just, when I think about the BRAVE framework for anyone who wants to, instead of resign right now, go give it a shot for that kind of conversation. What are the things they need to think about? Because it's one thing to initiate it, but you can't control the other person. So how do you, as your individual self, rise to the challenge to tend and befriend and be in a space where you take this uncertainty and fear and you turn it into as much safety as possible for yourself to then show up in that conversation? Like, what's some advice?
All right. So I want to plus one your comment about curiosity. There are so many like assessments I've taken. One is about about our values, and my top one, number one, is curiosity in the world. When I was a kid, I was like, I want to be paid to ask big questions. But the key is having curiosity, even for yourself, right? If you have this tendency to fly off the handle about something, or to get really mad about something, or to get super triggered about something, that maybe it's the same manager that just grinds your gears, right? Like maybe it's a partner and something they do. Maybe you can get curious and turn towards yourself and inquire a little bit. Like, there's a reason this is happening. This is my nervous system protects me. That's what it's built to do. So it's protecting me. And I'm aware of this feeling bad because I don't need it anymore. So it's here so that I can address it and move past it. And it feels uncomfortable because it's finally ready to be addressed.
Say that again, because I think that's so important. I'm so sorry, but what you said is it's showing up because it's ready. In other words, I'm feeling triggered and my awareness is meeting that trigger in the moment because I'm now ready to do something about it. Are you saying it signals readiness?
Yeah. So the way that your nervous system responds to things in your past, things in your present, and the way it looks at your future is essentially like if you heard a rustle in the bushes and the last time you heard that, a lion jumped out at you. Every time you hear a rustle in the bushes, you're going to freak out and act like it's a lion, right? Your nervous system responds to the past and acts in the present like it was the same thing that happened. So if when you were a kid, if the last 50 times your boss said something else happened, right? Like you respond to the thing that you're now used to, and you've now like patterned the same thing that you used to. And for a while, it protected you because that lion kept coming back, right? Like, and it protected you. But now, fast forward, the rustle in the bushes are your friends throwing you a surprise birthday party. And if you react the same way, it's not the same situation, right? But it's really hard because our nervous system is unconscious. We don't choose our responses. Usually we can, but most often they happen. And then we're like, oh, that was bad. So what we can do is when something keeps happening and it keeps not working, and it keeps being something that like, oh, I'm not really proud of how I responded to that, or I keep fighting with this person for this thing. Maybe I'm responding to something that's ready, that's coming up this way and coming up this often because I'm ready to move past it. And so when we've experienced hard things, trauma sounds like a big word. It's not, but we can experience anything and pattern it as trauma if we actually haven't had social support around us to walk through it. But if our nervous system essentially experiences something that's too big for us to metabolize at once, which the loss of a job, the loss of a parent, partner, any kind of loss, any kind of grief, any kind of big change, our nervous system often can't metabolize it all at once. It's like it can't bite off something that big and chew it, right? It's the same thing. So it comes up slowly. You metabolize some, and then the rest comes up in little bits and pieces to be like, oh, I'm ready to metabolize this part now. And so when it comes up, you get to push it back down and be like, go away. I don't feel like dealing with it, which is a choice, which is fine. or you get to say, this is here. Like this keeps
That
coming
makes
back.
sense. Yeah.
What can I do about it?
Yeah. And if it's not convenient in the moment, you can still make a note and go, okay, this clearly is showing up again. There's something here I need to be curious about. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's not like you have to like stop everything and be like, I need to address this right now. I mean, you might be in the middle of a presentation and your body is just being like, hello, right? What I've noticed over time, getting really curious about myself for sure. I really appreciate where you're going with that. Because when I think about whether it's loss of a job, loss of a spouse, like grief, right? You know, it's also loss of a project or loss of a sale or loss of a colleague who left and you're still staying, or loss of a promotion when someone else got it. Like there's so many layers that could trigger this loss response that aren't, you haven't calibrated to what's going on and met it to where it is. So therefore it's all just really big and it sucks.
Right.
Right.
And
then
if you feel like you're dealing with it alone and your manager or whomever is with you, that person that's with you or not on your journey, either you're dealing with it alone, there's someone that you don't really know if you can trust because they're not consistent, or there's that hopefully manager that you can trust that's like, hey, it must be really hard that we pulled the budget from the project you're working on. You put a lot of your identity into that.
Mic drop, right?
That, right?
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Even as a parent, like one of the things I taught, they call them narratives, is you say, wow, that must be really hard. You didn't get invited to that birthday party. Yeah. I know that would hurt my feelings too. You know, and you just kind of sit. There's no solving getting your kid invited to the birthday party they didn't get invited to. No. But witnessing it and holding space for it so that they don't feel alone, right? And that they feel valued and seen. Like that is one of the greatest challenges I think I've ever learned when I became a parent was, I don't have to fix it. I just have to hold space, not half. Fixing it is not the answer. Holding space for it for my daughter to figure out what's right for her and maybe give her some choices to think about what would feel better right now. You know,
what do you think you should do? What do you, is there something that you need? Do you need to work on it and just vent? Do you want to brainstorm a solution for it? Like you can, like, what does support look like right now?
Totally.
You?
Yeah.
Is an amazing question to ask virtually anyone. And oftentimes people won't even know the answer.
Yeah, no, sometimes I've asked my family that. They're like, oh yeah, here she comes with a what would support look like question, right? And then I'm saying, would it be this or that? Let me give you, let's narrow it down. But to be curious about that, I think is to be kind and human. I mean, the example you gave about you put your heart and soul into it, you didn't get this is so, imagine as leaders, if we all took that on right now, and then the next time you saw disappointment in a teammate, a colleague, a direct report, heck, a superior, right? Someone who's hierarchically above you, to be like, that must suck. You put a lot into that. And just like pause. Imagine how life-giving that is to the person to be seen. I love this so much because burnout happens in tech. In the never good enough, always on, never good enough will replace you tomorrow. That's the culture, right? A lot of times. And imagine in that always on, never good enough culture, you're like, oh, great, I didn't get it. Now I'm going to lose my job. You're someone in a leadership position says, you worked really hard on that. I'm really sorry it didn't work out. Are you going to feel like it's always on, never good enough? The same way you would as if they just said, oh, sorry. You know what I mean? Like to put some language around that, I think can actually change culture.
Oh, it does.
Yeah.
It completely does. 1,000%. And when you do that, when like I'm speaking to all the leaders that are listening, when you address it and give voice to it, make sure you're looking at the person, look them in the eye. You can put someone into the stress response or take someone out of the stress response just by your eyes. Mm-hmm. Like if you're looking at them and kind of like furrowing your brow and you have that like mean mark in between your eyes, like if you're looking at someone and judging them and being analytical about something, they can tell and they feel like, ooh, you're judging me about something. Like, and they almost back up. But if you're just saying something like, hey, that probably hurt. Like, that sucks. I'm really sorry. You put so much time and effort into that. You're still important. It got trashed, but you're still important.
Right.
If you're looking at them with an open, accepting, just like you can do it with your eyes too. And you can make someone feel really bad or really good just by the way you look at them. The Chinese symbol for listen is actually comprised of the symbols for one eye, one ear, one heart. So when you're listening to your people, sure, listen to them, but look at them because emotions fly across our faces faster than we realize. And you won't even be conscious of it. But if something is off and you're looking at someone and you're hearing the things that they're not saying, you'll be able to say, hey, you'll be able to take them aside later
Mm-hmm.
and say, like, are you all right? I feel like it feels like we might not be okay. Like, and there's that opportunity to push pause again and connect with them and see them. And that can make all the difference. That could make the difference in them not leaving, right? Like retention. See people.
I mean, he's so good here. And okay, so I'm just going to share my story because I need to say this out loud. I think this is super important. You talked about resting bitch face. My husband calls it Director Lisa. So I get this look, right? Now, your brow is furrowed, Lisa. And most of the time, I'm not even pissed. I'm actually thinking and I'm feeling, but I don't know what I'm feeling yet. So I'm confused. I'm actually having a moment of confusion in my body. But someone on the other side who doesn't know that, and I don't put words to that, will be like, what the F is your problem, Dury? Right? So I'm going to tell you a story real quick. And then I would love to know what your guidance is on this. So Senior Vice President and I working months on a huge project, big conference, training, thousands of employees. Okay. And I had everything written up and I was working with a production company and we had this flow of how we were going to do this recognition ceremony for the employees who had overachieved. I put my heart and soul into this thing and I was running this massive project. I was exhausted. I was probably burnt out then and didn't even know it. Do you know what I mean? Like just adrenaline, life-giving energy running. And so we go to do the rehearsal and the production team doesn't follow the flow that we had agreed to. And now this senior vice president was very meticulous with details and I needed us to look united to her. It's super important. Okay. So the producer comes up and, hey, I'm looking at the flow and I think we should, and my face, right? My face. Do we want to talk about Director Lisa resting bitch face? Like, I don't even know if I could make it. Let me try. I can't even tell you. So if you're watching the video, my eyes got really big, my head tilted, and it was basically like, fuck off. Look. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So she looks at me and she says, what do you think, Lisa? And I said, because she got excited about his idea. And if I had capacity and resources available, I probably would have been too. But to me, it was one more effing change at the last effing minute. You didn't respect our boundaries. You came in to save the day. You didn't care about me as the client. You had the talent. You know what I mean? It was a whole thing. And I said, if that's what you'd like to do. She goes, are you fine? I'm like, I'm fine. She goes, well, I want you to tell it to your face. She said that to me in front of the producer, the entire freaking team. I want you to tell it to your face because my face didn't match my words or my energy. And you know what happened at that moment? I could have cried. I could have stormed off. I could have yelled. I don't know what happened, but something divinely inspired came through my soul. And I said, you know what my face is saying? I'm tired. I wish we would have had this conversation 3 days ago. I'm totally okay with doing it. And I don't have the resources anymore to manage my face. And I was pissed that she called me on it too, right? And she's like, thank you for aligning your face and your words. I think we should go for it. You know what I mean? Like we literally had that conversation. It was messy. I left and I was just like, I'm so damn tired. Nobody listens. You could tell this whole freaking story. Mm-hmm. And yet at the time, for whatever reason, because we had enough trust, and my ego wasn't in the driver's seat, I could just say, I'm sorry, my face isn't matching my words. I really want you to trust my words. My face is tired of, I would love your reaction to that. Cause I know you've dealt with this so often, but pick it apart. Whatever you want to say about it, let me know.
I mean, kudos to you for having enough resources to actually say that. And often you're having an emotion because you have a need that's not being met. And you usually can't, it's really hard. I mean, it's possible, but it's really hard to speak to that in a controlled way, in a professional way when that's happening. So kudos to you. She needs someone to tell her, like, if something's happening, you need to not say it in front of other people, like pull the person aside. Mm-hmm. That's not because what she thinks she's being tough and making an example out of it. Like, don't do that with me, but she's making it about her. And when leaders make things about them, their people like shrink back, right? Mm-hmm. Like they can't be themselves. They're afraid to do something wrong because if the manager doesn't like it, they'll call them out and embarrass them. Why do we? So I'll tell you a little fact about rejection. So I shouldn't have even said that. In 2001, the Surgeon General came out and said, like, the thing that is that threatens us the most in our culture. What do you think it is?
Well, you gave me the answer now.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not crime, not gangs, not anything like.
It's not smoking. It's not. Yeah.
It was rejection. Mm-hmm. Why? Because when we're rejected or embarrassed like that, which is a form of rejection, we lose IQ points. Our brain, because our brain is prehistoric and is like, oh, to be ostracized from the tribe needs to be eaten by a wild animal. So anytime, I mean,
that was my lion, right? That was my lion in the shrubs.
Yeah.
Yes. Makes sense.
Yeah. So which we knew this when we were like 16, right? But rejection is what our brain says to rejection is, no, you can't. It means death. So we dim our light, dumb ourselves down, do whatever it takes to just fit in, just be accepted.
Yep.
Because what we believe, which is unconscious and just a response, is that it's over if I'm rejected. And so leader, and you're purposefully making people feel that so that you feel stronger, shame on you. Like, shame on you. Grow up, take people aside. If you need to flex your muscles and like be feared to get your work done, you need to do some work.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate what you're saying about it, because it's so, the way I look at people, I mean, heck, I do this for a living. I looked at it like, you must not be okay to be that crappy to me in this moment. Like, I'm going to rise to the challenge. Right. But what I really wanted to say is tell it to my face. Really? But I was like, wait, there's all this politics and all this stuff. And, I have to keep the shit together because I am the leader of this large ass project, massive project. But I will tell you, like, finding those words in that moment, it was exhausting. And it was like shining a spotlight that I'm almost about to break. And I felt super vulnerable. And so she could have just like gone for the last dagger, right? Which she didn't. And yet I don't think I've ever acknowledged how much it sucked until right now. So thank you for helping me see that, right? Because I was always like, well, I'm resilient, but you shouldn't have to be resilient. You should be able to have that kind of conversation in a way that's helpful, which is, hey, Lisa, you seem irritated. Is everything okay? Like, how can we support you? What do you think? What makes sense? Because really what I was thinking about was having to get the entire crew to turn on a dime to make this change instead of leaving good enough, because the return on that decision wasn't going to be so exponential. It would change everything. And I also wanted, our leadership team to be happy. And I didn't want to make our producer that we had hired, I didn't want us to look not aligned.
Right.
And so I was like worrying about everybody else and not myself. And honestly, thank you for the quick moment there, because I'm sure I'm not the only one who's had a moment like that.
Oh, of course.
Even when you can like find the words, it still sucks.
Yeah. Well, and now let me take the other side. What do you think she was feeling in that moment?
I think based on the face that I was making, I can only imagine that the face I was making was causing her to not trust the process or trust the team, and that she really wanted me to own it. And so she needed me to, be aligned with my energy, my words, and my face.
Did she have a really hard day too? Was she really stressed too?
Well, she was about to go on stage in front of thousands of people, of course. Right. Yeah. Yep.
So what do you think, if you could identify a need that she had, what do you think her need was? Did she need certainty from you? Did she need to know that what you said was actually true? Did she need significance? Did she need to feel important? Did she need uncertainty? Probably not. Did she need connection? Did she need to feel like you had a connection that would make her somehow feel safer?
It's really interesting, because when I look back on it, she might have been like, why are we fucking changing the plan? Right? She might have had all that. And then looking to me to make sure that we could execute on it. And then my face not matching. She could have just been like, really, are we doing this right now? Like, so she might have just, I think certainty is probably what she needed. She was about to go out in front of everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be my guess. I mean, because at the end of the day, if our belief is everyone's just doing the best they can, then she was having a hard day, and she might have needed someone to come to her and be like, this sucks. We just changed everything. And now you have to go perform for people and be seen and not mess up where people can see you and see you fail.
Right.
And so, I mean, so why does that kind of stuff happen? Because we don't have the language to say, hold up, can we just take 20 seconds and have a brave conversation? Like, can we just everyone stop? And usually when teams have had those, and it's almost like they know each other better. They know the stuff that hurts a little more intimately. Those moments don't happen as much, because you've then heard how the tiniest things have actually really affected other people. And you realize, oh, I've inflicted that pain before. I don't want to do that. I didn't intend it, right? Like, we never intend it. We react rather than respond, because we haven't figured out the moment to take the pause before we open our mouths.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. One of the things I think about when we run the workshops all of the engagements that we do, one of the things we really try very hard to do is for especially like new leader onboarding, right? Because they're all about, let's get it done. Here's our goals, rah, rah. And I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. What makes you tick? What drives you crazy? What's a high point story? When are you at your worst? What do you need help with? Like really showing up as that human in that process as a leader to help others know how to read your resting bitch face, or perhaps my, what the fuck face or whatever. Director Lisa, that my husband always, that's our big joke. But it's also really great that we have a label for it. For me, because it's safe. When I get told, hey, Director Lisa's showing up, right? I know what that means. And so even when I'm onboarding teams, I'll be like, hey, Director Lisa could show up. This is what's going on underneath it. Can we together call it, right? And to me, that's brave. That's amazing. Oh. What are some other components of bravery as we think about people in this always on, never good enough, we'll replace you tomorrow, never feeling safe? That's a really hard hole to climb out of. Yeah. So what can we give them that's actionable today? Either a mantra, a thought, a question?
So the B, so BRAVE is an acronym. So the BRAVE.
Yeah, let's do that. Mm-hmm.
So the B stands for be present. And we've talked about this a bit, and be present sounds super easy and super simple. And yet it's still the hardest thing for me. When someone comes to you and shares something hard, your employee comes to you, our story is that they're coming to us because we need to fix it. Either that's our story, or we like being the hero, or we don't want them to feel pain, or we don't want them to feel pain because it's annoying for us to have to deal with them feeling pain, right? Like,
I say, this is very in my head. This is really inconvenient. I have shit to get done, right? And then I was like, oh, well, there's my trigger word. When I feel it's inconvenient, that's exactly when I need to stop everything. But I had to learn that. But yes, inconvenient for sure.
So what we do is we just dive in and fix things for other people, because we're like, you can't just let me do it. I got it. Just I got it. Right. And we think we're doing them a service, but what we're doing is putting more on our shoulders. So we're getting more stressed. We're getting closer to burnout. Our story is no one else can do this. I have to do everything. Right. Which is emotional weight on our shoulders. And what we're doing for them is that we're robbing them of their own path to resilience. Like if we were just able to say, like, think about how different this feels. Hey, Lisa, here's what happened. Oh my God, I feel like it's falling apart. I don't know. Here's what happened. Well, I don't know what to do. And your response is I got it. Just forget about it. Just put it in my hands. Like, don't worry about it. And they're like, okay. And they walk out. But they kind of walk out with their head down because you basically said, you can't fix this. You're now useless. You can't fix this. You can't do this without me. Other scenario. Hey, Lisa, hard thing. I don't know what to do. What do I do? And your response is like, oh, wow. Yeah, that does feel hard. Are you okay? I mean, I'm here if you need me, but I think you got this. What do you think we should do? You know this best. And then just stop talking.
Yeah. Look at my smile. Like I can even feel it when you do it, just as a example. Like how empowering is that to feel seen and then reinforce that, yeah, you totally got this. What do you think? And just shut up. Like leadership can be much easier if you let it be. Do you know?
I mean, so the science behind mental resilience is, so you've heard of PTSD. Something hard happens, you let it hold you back, you push it away, and you're like, no, there's something that I don't want to deal with this. There's an opposite to that nobody talks about. And the annoying part is that most of it is our choice. We can either let things hold us back, or the opposite of PTSD is called post-traumatic growth, PTG. And we let that hard thing push us forward, right? That's how we train our soldiers before they go to war. Like this is the mental training that they get. And what's interesting about being present rather than diving into fix is you're saying, this is hard. I'm going to witness you and I'm here if you need help, but I don't think you do. I think you've got this. Let this push you forward. And then you're letting them build their own confidence, build their own self-esteem, build their own resilience. They're going to be a better employee after that. They're also going to be more motivated after that. And you're not saying, I won't help. You're not saying, go do it on your own. That's a third scenario that we did not cover.
Yeah.
If you're saying, I got you if you need me, but I don't think you need, I think you can do this. Like, what do you think? And just, it takes 5 minutes for them to then word vomit whatever they think, probably brainstorm in, talking along the way. And maybe they come to something and maybe they don't, but they feel like you believe in them a bit more. So they feel less like they have to dump things on you and more empowered, more seen. And when the solution works and you're then able to be like, you did great. That was you. You want to give someone a bonus? Do that.
Yeah. And that makes it so much easier to not feel like you have to quit, right? Because you know what? How many times do people quit because they don't feel valued? You don't feel valued when you bring the hard shit into the office.
Yeah.
And then the boss is like, never mind, I got it. Why would you stay? Like, why would you want to stay? So this, going back to the great resignation and looking at being brave and having the conversations, I really, really appreciate these examples you're giving, because you can do this right now. You literally, the next person that shows up with a problem, you literally can say, sounds hard. You okay? You know what? I know you've got this. When's the last time you were able to solve something like this? What ideas do you have? Like, just remind them, bring them back to those high point stories of when they've already, even if it's not the exact same thing, to allow them to like re-enroll in themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's beautiful what you just said. I think everybody can do this today. Like, this is not wait for our workshops or wait for the next book to come out. You can do it right now.
You can do that today. And I would also say, like, the E in our framework stands for empathy. And we say any time someone, shares anything vulnerable, which is hopefully more often than not. And vulnerability can actually be sharing a complaint, sharing something in anger, right? Like vulnerability is the sharing of an emotion. It doesn't say a good emotion or a hard emotion or an angry, like we just don't like to deal with the prickly ones, right? But people think that empathy is agreeing with someone. And if we have empathy, we believe what they believe. So emotions are like the surface. They're what we see, right? The things we don't see are the things that cause the emotions. And there are needs, which we are wildly unaware of. We're not taught how to figure out what they are ever. So that's that's honestly one of the things that we teach, that people are like, oh my gosh, I've never thought about the world in this way. And it feels like a superpower when you actually know it. And so when someone is vulnerable and shares something sad, embarrassed, angry, resentful, like all of these are emotions, right? When someone shares an emotion, know that there's a need beneath it that has or hasn't been met. And if it hasn't met, they'll be happy. If it hasn't been met, they'll be something less than happy, right? And when that happens, even if you don't agree, even if you think they handled it wrong, have the wrong belief, you just wildly 110% disagree. If you say to yourself, while they're talking, oh, I'm judging you. Or like every time you have a judgment, if you can name it, and you're going to judge one of two things. You're going to judge them. They're wrong. They're bad. Oh, they're stupid. And you won't say it, but you'll think it.
Yeah. What a whiner. What a jerk. Oh God, here we go again. Yeah.
Or you're judging yourself. Ooh, did I do that right? Ooh, I don't know how to do this. Why are you coming to me? Like, depending on many things, we tend toward doing one of the two of those. And when judgments arise, our practice in Brave Conversations Over Coffee is you just label that judgment in your head and you say, I'm going to put this on the shelf. I'm going to deal with this later. Those are the things that you end up dealing with later on your own time. But you do that so that you can stay with that person. You can stay with them in that conversation and not get tied up in the whirlpool of your own judgment, because that you're not there anymore. And they can tell in your face that you're not there anymore. And when you shut down, they don't have anywhere to go. And it's not a conversation. It's them and a brick wall. And you might as well and you can even say, I'm really sorry. I just shut down for a second there. I didn't mean to do that. If you felt that, I apologize. Like, I call myself out as much as I can.
That's beautiful. Yeah.
And so it's just people tend to think that empathy means I agree with you. You don't have to agree with someone. Empathy is just the possibility of having curiosity for someone else's experience. Where did that come from? Oh, you voted for this person or believe in this thing. Interesting. I'm the opposite, but I would love to know what's so important. Like, tell me about what's so important to you that like led to that, or like what fuels that decision, or like tell me more about, like, I want to know you better. Like, when you think about the reasons people share, you're sharing to be known, not to win, not to get your point across, not to teach someone that they're wrong and how they should be. You have no control. So when people say hear Brave Conversations Over Coffee, they're like, oh, you're like the Brene Brown of coffee. And I'm like, I love you. Thank you for putting me on the same plane. And this is about vulnerability, but we're not asking people to come and have vulnerable conversations. That's not actually anything that we're asking them to do. We're teaching you how to listen to other people who may or may not be vulnerable. We're teaching you how to locate that moment when you can either shut down or open up, so that if you choose to open up, you're going to have a more productive conversation. If you choose to shut down, well, then wall might meet wall and you're at an impasse, and like, okay, but just know that you chose that, right? There's you can't ask someone to be vulnerable, and we're not doing that either. You can just create the environment for them to feel safe enough to share what's true if you can listen in the way that actually makes someone else's brain feel safe enough to be who they are.
I always tell people when I look up, it's because I'm processing. Like I'm not bored. I'm really here. But that's another way to like let people know so they can experience you. So I'm sharing that because I'm looking up and I'm thinking empathy and intentionality. Like those two words just kept, when you were talking, they just kept like screaming at me. And I think in the world of tech, writing code, like everything makes sense. It's ones and zeros and you have formulas and, things work. And then if you get a bug, you fix the bug and, you have new features rolling out. And there's like a lot of things that are, I'm just going to use the word logic. They're logical, right? And to me, empathy, if we were to put a logic frame on it or a lens, you just made it really safe for people to try and be empathetic and to be in empathy. Because you said, we're not saying you have to agree with them. Empathy doesn't mean you have to take their side. Empathy just means you're literally being curious and staying with them because your intentionality, the code you're writing is, I want to better understand. I'm seeking information. Like that's a beautiful formula instead of, well, empathy means I just have to, agree with them and give them their way. No. And so I literally saw like intentionality plus empathy equals results. Like I had a formula. That's what was happening in my brain.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Or awareness or whatever word you want, but with intentionality, like being on purpose and staying in it, and empathy not meaning you have to be right, but that you have, your heart is involved enough to see the humanity in the other person and to hold them smart, brilliant, amazing, in whatever capacity they are, just as much as you are. Like the humanity, almost like the great equalizer is we're all humans.
Yeah.
Even if we don't agree. And I think for leaders, with everything going on right now, how many articles have we read lately? Empathy is the new thing, right? But no one's explained it that way before. Yeah, I think this is a really important piece in what we're talking about today, to give people permission to be curious and not necessarily feel like you have to agree, to take the pressure off of having to agree or make the other person right. Just be curious. It's not about the end result. It's about being in that.
The thing I feel like I see two things with companies that do a really good job with culture. And one, they create that environment we're talking about where people can tell the truth, even if it's hard. The second thing they do is on the order of this. The second thing they do is everyone can communicate things in a way that the people that they're talking to can hear, which means that their communication style isn't about them. Do you know how many times I hear, well, I'm a direct person. I walk around saying my love language is words of affirmation. Does that it doesn't mean, and like it's funny, the assessments make me laugh sometimes because people walk around knowing they're like, I'm an ENFJ, right?
Exactly.
Like, they're happy about it. And it's great. Like know yours, dig into it, learn about yourself. I love it. But you don't need to know your own. You need to know everybody else's.
Exactly.
Because you need to be able to phrase things in a way that they can hear. Communication is not about you. And though you're a direct person, if your team doesn't receive things in a direct manner, I don't care what kind of person you are. You need style.
Yeah. So good.
And that comes with empathy. Like that comes with putting your judgments and yourself on the shelf and saying, I got to stay with you. How will you hear me right now? What do you need? I mean, it's a love language. Knowing your own just doesn't matter. You need to know the other person's, or else you're going to give all the support in the way that you do. And they're going to be like, I don't have any support because you're not giving
it. Yeah. I feel, well, here's what I know. We're going to be doing more of this, my friend. Yeah. I know that RLD Group is bringing brave conversations to our clients, right? So let's just plant that seed for anyone listening. You want to have one of these? We got you, right? In the meantime, I think if I could ask you for one, I think I really want a question. What's one question we can all ask ourselves today to help ourselves be more present or to be in empathy easier? Because those are the two things I think that if we circle back on everything today, if people were to take notes right now, and one thing that would help them, what would it be, either in being present or empathetic?
One question that I ask myself in every hard situation is, who do you want to be? And how do you want to be remembered in this moment for this? Like, what do you want to tell? And this is different versions of the same question.
Yep.
What do you want to tell your grandkids? How do you want to tell them you responded to this? And it essentially like levels you up into a higher version of you so that you're not in your ego. You're not in like the thing that wants to like, burn everything down and wreak havoc. You're in a better place, and answering from there always gets you to something that is alignment with your values, in alignment with who you are and what you care about, and will help you have better conversations. If you're about to have a hard conversation or want to have a hard conversation, approaching it in a way that builds trust between you and that other person. It's not about winning. It's about like, how can I hear them? How can I share with them what's important to me and figure out a way forward? It might not be the thing you want, but it might be better than the thing that you think you want. Like what was Henry Ford's quote? If they asked me what they needed, they would have said faster horses. Or if I asked them what they needed, faster. You don't know, often what you end up with when you have a brave conversation is better than the thing you thought you were shooting for, right?
Yeah, this is so good. So the question is, who do you want to be and what do you want to tell your grandkids about how you showed up in that moment? Did I get that right? Oh my gosh, I love this. Okay, so here's my other question. Music. I believe very strongly in my own experience and with my clients that music is a wonderful way to get back in your body, to get more centered, to move some of the stress out, and also either raise your vibe and sometimes even to get more reflectionary. So when you ask your question, who do you want to be? What's a good song that would go with that question for anyone listening today? What's a good song that would help pull that out?
My song is by a guy named Trevor Hall, and it's called A Reminder.
Trevor Hall, Reminder. What's the basis of that song? Like why that one?
It tells you to find your center. It's the words that, I mean, should I give it away? The words that it says over and over and over and over and over again. It's like, it's interesting, but it says, my love is just a reminder, find your center. And it's just like, it takes me from wherever I am and brings me right back down to earth and stops me from circling in whatever it's I'm circling in.
That's awesome. I mean, even when I think about that moment, like tell your face, right? You better check in with your face because your face isn't aligned, right? Yeah. Remember, to like have that moment of that pause and to have even those lyrics, like the gift you gave even in the lyrics right now is so beautiful. I can't wait to listen to the song.
Oh my God. I can't wait to hear it. Yeah. I want to know yours. What's yours?
My favorite is called I Am Light by India Ari.
I love that one too.
I can play that. My daughter can sing that. She knows. Listen, that is my go-to. When Mama's got I Am Light playing, we know I'm working, getting back to center, right? She has another one. I can't remember the title, but the words are slow down, baby, you're going too fast. Oh, Back to the Middle. It's called Back to the Middle. India Ari, Back to the Middle. That's like when you're burning out and you're going too fast and worried about everybody else, get back to the middle. Those two for sure. One's a little more fast paced, so it depends on my mood. If I'm feeling feisty or feeling like, but yeah, thank you for asking. Those are mine. Yeah.
I think another one just came to me that I love her. This isn't my favorite song of hers, but Sarah Bareilles actually sings a song called Brave.
Brave. Oh, dude. Yeah, you had me at Sarah Bareilles and Brave. Exactly.
How do I not?
That's like a no duh. Yeah. Okay. So for every person who has been moved, whether they're listening to the recording or somehow this has made its way into a team meeting, which is one thing that happens in our podcast. They actually go into team meetings for reflection. The question for everyone is, who do you want to be? Right. And what do you want your grandkids to know about how you showed up in that moment? Elisabeth, I mean, so grateful for how you show up in this world, for what you're doing to help the planet, right? And for you sharing your wisdom, your insight, your real essence with us today. It's such a gift, and I can't wait to see what's unfolding as we work to bring brave conversations into our own client organizations and support your mission any way possible. So if people want to know more, I mean, I've already alluded that the minute I met Elisabeth, I watched 2 TEDx talks and a Netflix documentary. I was like, holy cow. But what's the best way for people to follow you, get inspired by you, and connect with you?
At Cafe Unimatic is most of our social. CAFFE, the Italian word for coffee, and Unimatic. That's my coffee company. And that's Instagram, Facebook, all of the things. CafeUnimatic.com is our coffee company. And BraveConversationsOverCoffee.com is our Brave Conversations site. And of course, LinkedIn. And you'll link it all. I'm not concerned.
I'll link it all. I'll link you up. I'll link you up, my friend. Yeah.
Everybody say hi.
So
and drinking coffee.
And coffee. Like, we haven't even really gone into the coffee thing. So, okay.
Do that next time.
So what I want to circle back, I want to do a little quick summary. We went all the way from, being in a stress response, taking yourself from alone and fear-based and security being number one, to either tending and befriending with someone you trust, whether it's a colleague or not, right? And then also we kind of snuck in rise to the challenge. We haven't labeled it that, but that other stress response of, being able to just summon it all and do something about it. We talked about being present. We talked about empathy. We shared stories and insights into questions you can ask yourself, ways to show up in a way that actually make it safe for others. We've even barely scratched the surface on the great resignation and women, leaving the workforce. And even what we talked about today can actually help any leader right now have those conversations. Who do you want to be knowing that women are leaving the workforce in droves? You want to be a part of that solution? What do you need to do about that? So much more to say. And I just really, really, really want to thank you for your time and tell you what a life-giving experience I just had, not only on my own journey, but making sure that we're amplifying your voice to others. So thank you for being on Control Alt Delete.
Thank you so much. It was my honor and joy, and keep doing everything you're doing. You are changing the world one leader, or probably more than one leader at a time, many leaders.
Well, thank you. And I look forward to doing that over some more coffee, my friend. We have things to do. There are things we are on. Hint, there's more coming. Just sneak peek coming your way. All right. Thank you so much. And everyone, make it a great day. And the question for you is, who do you want to be? Who do you need to be right now? All right. Take good care.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Control Alt Delete with Lisa Dury. Head on over to wherever you find your other favorite podcasts and subscribe to Control Alt Delete with Lisa Dury. Leave a review with some of that 5-star love. And let's keep it real. There's a reason why you're listening to this. If you don't get the support you need and start making changes in your life and work as a leader in tech, you can expect regret and burnout in the near future. Lisa and the team at RLD Group have been in your shoes, sat in those meetings, and experienced everything you can imagine as a leader in tech. They can help you get kick-ass results at work without burning out, so you can be present for the moments that matter to you and your loved ones. Take your first step by visiting rldgroupllc.com. RLD Group helps develop technical experts lacking people leadership skills from being a company's biggest liability into their greatest asset. Find out more at rldgroupllc.com. Thanks again for listening. Catch you next time on Control Alt Delete with Lisa Dury, powered by RLD Group, as we help you reboot your leadership drive.